And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an energetic healer. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 29-year talk radio host in Los Angeles and beyond. I am a creative and performing artist. I'm a paranormal survivor, and I come to you live from my home in Southern California every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. This show is about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about humanity. It's about passion, one of my favorite words. It's about service. It's about becoming and then maintaining your best you in this big, beautiful world. And most importantly, inspiring others to do the same. And every week on the show, it may be my show. It is the Sheena Metal Experience after all, but it's always most definitely your experience. My guest today is a wonderful healer and shaman, and it's so wonderful always to have her here. Please welcome the fantastic Rebecca Haywood to the show. How are you, my friend? It's good to have you.
I'm doing well. Thank you. So happy to be back.
And you look like the autumn goddess today, like the goddess of the fall. Like everything about you is autumn. So what's happening there and why?
Well, I'm sitting in front of my Day of the Dead altar, Dia de los Muertos. And so the marigolds, the lovely marigolds, are believed to entice the spirits to our altar, to our home. And the butterflies, which are sort of dispersed throughout the altar, specifically the monarchs, are said to represent the actual spirits of our beloveds that have returned. And so, yeah, the Day of the Dead, which is actually several days, you know, each day is sort of assigned a different honoring. The children, the pets, you would love that. They even have a day for the pets.
I love the Day of the Dead cat. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And when
so they have, different days honoring different beloveds.
Does it start on November 2nd? Is that the first one?
No, that's the final. It ends on November 2nd. I'm trying to remember the first date of it is like October 26th, maybe.
Okay. All right.
It's only just 5 days though. So whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah. And so for me, I begin and I honor sort of all. But I put photographs of my beloveds that I want to honor and invite in to my home this year. I can't possibly put them all.
And you know what? For all of you.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want them all in my home. We were just talking about this, right?
Right. So, yeah. I don't want any of them in my home. I love them, but I don't want any of them I don't want anything in my space. Except a cat.
It's like here, the door is open, the veil is lifted. Welcome.
Right.
It's your
I'll
sweet
come to your house if it's haunted, right? But I don't want mine to be.
You get sweetbread.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird because before the show, I was telling you about an adventure I had this week in a haunted house, and you said you wouldn't go to a haunted house yet. You've invited the dead into your own home.
Well, yeah. I mean, expressly. No, I'm very picky. There's only like maybe six individuals I'm inviting.
Okay. How do you stop the others from coming, though? I mean, if you've got here's a monarch butterfly and look at these marigolds, how do you stop the flood of y'all come?
Well, I don't know. I can't say I exactly know how I do it. And maybe I'm not doing such a good job because all I know is that I keep waking up exhausted.
Yes.
These last few days, like my sleep is not my own. And it's not really been these last few days. It's really been since I got back from Mexico, from Teotihuacan.
Sure.
Yeah. So, it's a hazard of the job. And sometimes we don't know exactly the work that we're doing in the astral plane. I'm not always conscious of it. I don't remember my travels every morning. I just know that I worked.
Yeah.
And I have absolute faith that I'm taken care of in that, I know I'm doing good work wherever I am, and that I'm protected in that.
I think the last time you were here, you had also just come back from Mexico.
Yeah. I did 2 back-to-back trips, one in September and one in October.
Wow. It's beautiful that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yes, I think that alone, because you're in this area that's very spiritually charged and also very pure. And then you come back here to this place of mass people, that can be a little more, mixed energies, right? And I think it takes a while to get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so open, going on
Right.
these journeys. It's a spiritual journey. It's a spiritual pilgrimage. So you're going there to open yourself, and so then you come back to the city. You're very open, and it can take a bit to sort of recalibrate your nervous system to that opening.
Exactly.
And and
Yeah.
the other part of it is that I'm bringing groups. I bring students there and clients there. So I'm very much still I carry them home with me for a time to make sure that they get through the recalibration part.
Yes. Yeah. And that's part of being a healer, right? And an empath, that you carry a lot of people, their stuff around with you. People don't understand that when they're going through a hard time, you're going through a hard time because you feel it.
Yeah.
And, you're not just in your own little myopic world of just thinking about yourself, as many people are. And sometimes carrying the whole energy of the world with you.
Oh yeah.
And we forget, I lived in the city for 30 years and I love the city. I came back here for COVID and then never left. And where I live, I mean, certainly I don't live in the middle of nowhere. I live in a very thriving suburb of Los Angeles, but where I live, I'm kind of tucked between, back into a wetlands, and then the ocean's on the other side of that, in this little area where the wetlands really surround on both sides where I live. And on the other 2 sides are streets that almost no one ever drives on. My mom used to say that you could cover yourself in honey and stick $100 bills to you naked and walk up and down our street and nobody would even look twice at you. I don't think anybody would even see you. It's such a rare thing when I drive home at night that I even see a car. So it changes.
Can we
right?
test theory just for fun?
Yes, you want to come down and try it? Come on down.
Okay.
I'll bring the honey. You bring the hundreds, and we'll make it work.
Oh, I see how
I'm telling you, nobody would even see us. We could film it for TikTok. We'd be like, "We're here. We're naked, and there's $10,000 in money on us." Nobody'd be like, "Whatever." So I went back up to LA this time last year to do a play, and the first day that I got off of the 405 and I was driving through West LA, I was like, "Oh, why am I feeling nervous?" And I thought, "Oh, I haven't been around this many people in a couple of years."
Yeah.
And there is something about acclimating to human energy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said to human energy.
Yeah.
Because it's a different breed of energy. And for me, nature is such a refuge, and even just my backyard, just my garden, and communing with those entities is such an experience than most humans, and I say most humans because, we're not all of us have lost our wild, right? And that's
right.
That's how I look at it. It's just like sort of our wild essence. And I don't mean like the wild woman running around the street with honey and $100 bills. I mean wild in the senses, unaltered at in a natural frequency, in our natural essence of being.
Yeah. I was thinking about that a couple of days ago, about how I've always had so little regard for what anybody thought I should be doing or what human beings are quote unquote supposed to be doing. I think the only time that I've ever really noticed that was when other people that were in my life were telling me, "Hey, you know what we're all doing now?" And I was like, "What?" And so when I see situations like that where people are, friends, my friends, other friends are telling them, you shouldn't do this and you should, and I think that's so odd because I don't think I ever cared. I don't know what probably that says a lot for how I was raised and how my wild Scorpio mother raised me to be organically myself. But I think it also has a lot to say with a definitive choice that we make in life. Are we going to follow spirit and listen to what spirit tells us is right for us? Or are we going to listen to humans and listen to what humans are telling us we should be and how we should think and how we should feel? And I think the answer to that is never listen to humans. Always listen to spirit. Only listen to humans who are channeling spirit. Because humans should be worrying about their own lives and not about what's going on in your life. And I hear that so many times with my clients, and I'm sure you do too. Like, oh, my wife says I should do this, or my husband says I should do this, or my sister says I should be doing this. And I always say, but do you even want to do that? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why are you even listening? Does that even interest you? Or is that just something that you feel like you're missing out on the authentic human experience if you're not doing these things?
Yeah, it's like we never left high school.
Yeah. Yes. You're right.
When
Exactly.
in high school, for most, it was high school, there was a really pivotal moment of
Right.
our rebellion, right? My roommate and I were just talking about this, of just like the value of our teenage rebellion
Sure.
and how that gets like brushed out of our psyche as this like lapse in judgment, or those were like our bad years. That's when I was being the bad girl. And it's like, wait a minute, actually that is a spiritual awakening, right? That
Yes.
teenage
Sure.
rebellion. Absolutely, this spiritual awakening where we're starting to call bullshit on the human adults around us.
Yes. Yes.
And we're saying, wait a minute, maybe you don't have this whole thing figured out. Maybe this is all these rules are just something that you made up or your parents made up, and we've all just been following this whole time. And what do I believe? And it's an amazing moment in all of our lives that I highly recommend for our viewers to just like go back and recollect those moments, recollect that self that, as my grandfather used to say, that is driving in the middle of the road and keeping her middle finger up,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But I think it's interesting because I think for our generation when we were kids, and I think worse for the generation before us, television was always about kids were messed up and they would go to the parents and the parents would give the sage advice. I think it's funny because when you watch television now that have a lot of younger people storylines, like, junior high, high school, college age kids. Yeah, that's still going on. And the parents are still telling them that a lot. But then when they also show the parent storylines, the parents are totally screwed up and sometimes worse.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that we're sharing that now, that it's not always the bad kids rebelling against the good parents and the good parents are doing everything right, but that all of us at different stages in our lives are different versions of rock star and totally flawed. And as you get older, you just have different problems and different kinds of rebellion, right? But it never really goes away. It's just that things just get different. You overcome one hurdle and then there's another one. That's called your spiritual path.
Right. Yeah. And I think what's important in those rebellions, because you're right, they don't just live in our teenage years. Hopefully, if we're living right, we have several rebellions / awakenings in our life. And what I've noticed is important is to make sure that it's not merely a reactionary rebellion. Like the choice that I make out of it isn't just, okay, then I will choose the polarity of that which I am waking up to, right? To be a lie, right? I'll just choose the polarity. So they're telling me that this is what is right. So I'm going to do the opposite of that, and that's where we kind of lose our rebellion, the power of the rebellion. We kind of lose it a little bit because we're just in reaction, and we're actually still enslaved to that thing that we've just woken up to by choosing the polarity of it and the reaction to it, right? We're still basically worshiping that thing versus going, all I know for sure is that I'm awake and this is a dream, and this is not the dream I choose for myself.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just stay awake and keep choosing something different. I don't know what that different is, right? Like, I'll start where I am, one step in front of the other.
Yes.
You know, that's how we make the most of our rebellions. At least.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. My mom used to always say, you can't change what you've done, but you can change how you live every day.
Yeah.
And it's true, right? We spend so much time when I work with clients. It's so much like regret, right? Here's the thing. I just can't get over this. Why this? Why that? Why did I do this? Or why did this person leave me? And it's like, honey, you cannot go back and change that. And also with the dead, right? I don't want to talk to my mother where she is. I want her to come back here and be alive. Well, we all want that, but that's never going to happen. So you have to accept the reality of that human to human relationship is over, but now you can have a different kind of relationship. So are you going to do that, or do you want nothing? And I think we're such regretful beings, but you can't go back and change anything. You can also always change your behavior moving forward, but the past is never going to come back. And I think we spend too much time ruminating over that again and again and again, right? Why can't I change it? Why? Because it doesn't work that way. So why don't you, but in the meantime, while you've spent 10 years thinking about everything you couldn't change from the past, you've wasted 10 years. You could have moved forward and changed everything.
Right. Yeah. And who's to say that whatever it was you said or you did or didn't do wasn't somehow perfect?
Yeah.
Right. Like, let's stop pretending that we know for sure. You know, that we know for sure what's right, but also that we know for sure what's wrong.
Yes.
Let's stop pretending and let's, give ourselves a break in that sense of like, all I know is that I don't feel good about it now. And so I'm just going to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, I'm sorry. And please excuse me and forgive me to whoever is listening.
Right.
Whoever is willing to listen. And hopefully the most important person is listening, and that's you.
Yes.
Right? That's yourself. Right.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. And then let it go. I mean, let it go and make up for it by changing your behaviors moving forward, and be thankful for an experience, but it doesn't mean it has to come back. So often with clients, they'll say like, am I going to find love again? Is it going to be with one of my exes? Well, I'm not saying that can't happen, because it certainly does. And it can. People grow and they change, and sometimes they grow back into each other. But for the most part, those relationships are experiences, and they were growth for you, hopefully, and growth for the other person, hopefully. And they sit where they sit, and they're not all sort of meant to be replayed like a greatest hits album. You know what I mean? They live in those periods of time that they live in. And that's a super beautiful thing. I'm very, very good friends with one of my exes, and, we were together from the time I was 24 until the 24, 25 till I was 34, 35. So it's fun because when we're together, it reminds me of that time period, right? What it was like for me, I think, like for us to be kids together. And all the crazy things that we did as kids, and the fun we did with our band, and it's fun, but it lives in that time. I'm not trying to make it be in this time, because in this time it's become very much a family relationship, and I'm very thankful to have him in my life. But it's okay. It doesn't have to go back. And people ask us all the time, why don't you guys get back together? I think just because we're friends, we're still friends. But that doesn't work like that. That was it, and it was beautiful, and that was its time, and now it's time for something else. I think this idea that we have to go back to the past, back to the past, back to the past with everything is, it's a little bit like the high school football player that at 30 is still going back to high school in the Letterman's jacket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That time has passed. And it's time to capture your now, right? Do you find that when you work with people that people are so reticent to live in the now?
Well, sure. Even if they think they're living in the now, most aren't, right? They're living in a projection of the now,
Right.
in a creation, right? That because so many are afraid of the unknown and unwilling to admit the uncertainty of life and of the now and of the future.
Right.
So yeah, so they're constantly projecting the past onto the now, and or just something that's comfortable, just like let's keep the now the same, we just keep having the same now and the same now and the same now, and they wonder why they're so uninspired.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Creating their own Groundhog's Day.
Yes. Right.
Um,
They're living in the now, but they're living in the now looking backwards at something else.
yeah, or even just so rigidly in the now of like, it's a now that isn't flowing with the
Right.
actual now. It's a now that is constructed according to their schedule, their diet, their regimen of like, this is the recipe for a day that I'm comfortable with.
Right.
Not even that I'm happy with necessarily.
Right. Exactly.
That I'm
Yes.
comfortable with.
Right.
You know, so yeah. I mean,
like when somebody fakes a security camera and puts it on a loop. So it's always playing the same thing.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
the security camera is my favorite part of that analogy.
Oh, you just like that there's a security camera up filming people.
Yeah. Well, you know, because there is no security in that, right? In truth and in life. And, you know, safety is an illusion that, you know, any moment death can come for us. And that's a beautiful thing when that's what, you know, Day of the Dead and my love for this holiday and how Mexico really celebrates death is that of how they embrace her, the angel of death, in everyday life, not just at this time of year, how they honor that she walks one step behind us, taking every breath, every moment she takes from us. And we're grateful for that, right? We're grateful for that so that we can truly be in the full potential of the now. We don't have to carry all the burdens of the past with us, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I love there is no true security, right?
Yeah. Yes.
The only sure thing is uncertainty, right?
Yes.
That's the certain thing is change, is uncertainty, is transformation. And thank goodness, right? I mean, spoken from your Scorpio friend.
Right, exactly. Yes. Keep that change coming.
Yeah, we love change. We love death. It's like there's not enough people dying around here. What's going on?
It's so funny. And the word just went out of my brain. So forgive me, everybody. But when I was very little and I was in brownies, which is like the first thing, the beginning of Girl Scouts, you're a brownie when you're like 5. My mom was our brownie troop leader. And every year, I don't remember what patch we got, but we had to go to the graveyard and do the thing where you put the paper over the grave and rub it with the pencil so it gives you the impression of the grave. We did that every year. That was, my mom loved graveyards. She was fascinated by the energy and the history of graveyards. And we would be on a trip and she would see like this really gothic, beautiful graveyard. She'd be like, pull over, I want to see the graveyard. And she loved the mausoleums and she loved to look at the private mausoleums. And maybe it's a Scorpio thing. Y'all just are fascinated by life and death and the transition and the veil and everything.
Yeah. And it's not just the, you know, sort of the gory side of the paranormal. It's the transformation, you know, the human transformation, the day to day, the moment, you know, I get bored with if I think something's going to stay the same for too long.
Yeah. She was that way too. She got bored very easily by things. Like she was a brilliant fine artist and she would master something and then she would kind of get bored with it and move on to something else.
Yeah, that's
And I was always like, wow, if I'm good at something, like, and I'm the opposite as an Aries, right? I could have the exact same club sandwich every day for lunch and never get sick of it. I had this thing happen in September where my stomach kind of blew up, and the only thing that I could eat was a half an egg sandwich every day. And every day since then, I've had a half an egg sandwich. And my best friend, the Pisces, is always like, you're going to get sick of that one day and never have an egg sandwich again. And I'm like, no, I don't think so, because I pretty much my whole life have had an egg sandwich, and I would be happy to have it. Like when I went to work in movie theaters as a kid, people were like, by the time you're done here, you'll hate popcorn. And I'm like, I still love popcorn because I like the things I like, and I like them forever. But Scorpios are different. My mom was different. And I always think now, like, what did those little kids' moms think in like 1972 when they came home with their little copies of gravestones? Look what we did today. You know what I mean? Because everybody wasn't as into Gothic things as my mom was. But yeah, I think it's fascinating. Listen to you talk about Day of the Dead. She was fascinated. When we moved out here, she never heard of Day of the Dead, and she was fascinated by Day of the Dead and thought it was so wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite time of year, and not just because my birthday's coming up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But
well, and being of Irish descent, you know, the whole basis of Samhain and Halloween, which was of course the night before Samhain, is all about the dead. It's all about contacting the dead and getting in touch with the dead and keeping away the evil spirits you don't want and calling in the spirits you do. And but it really, I believe the holidays came at this time because the energy was already there.
Yes. Yeah.
This is just a time where the veil gets so thin and you can really feel it. And let me tell you, when I went to that haunted house on Monday night on the 30th, I wore white. I'm wearing white, and I've got all my charms over my solar plexus chakra, and I got my little vial of holy water, and I'm not playing because I know when the veil is thin, anything goes. And as I told you, I'd had some experiences in this house that I ward so much to never have experiences in this house. But the morning of the 30th, I did have experiences in this house, despite my 172 salt lamps and 350 selenite wands and towers and 67 brooms. I did have experiences that morning because the veil is just that thin. So for me, it's a completely enchanted time of year. I think the fall in general, there's something about when the days darken, right? I mean, Samhain literally means summer's end. And I don't know, I don't feel the same way. I mean, I love when the spring comes, but I mean, I'm an April baby. So for me, it's when the spring comes is my birthday. But I find when the spring comes to be more of the sun, and I find the autumn coming to be more like the moon.
Yeah.
The energy.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And, it's also, spiritually for us as individuals, a time, and collectively, a time of beginning our own death process, right? So it's not just about the veil between us and our beloveds that have passed and allies, spiritual allies that wish to speak through us. It's also what needs to die within ourselves. What needs to, get churned into the earth and laid into for our own transformation to rise again come spring, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, that's so true, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel? I mean, I know you don't go to haunted houses, but have you had paranormal experiences? Have you seen spirits? Have you felt them? I know you feel a lot of stuff in Mexico. Have you felt stuff in places where you lived as well or were visiting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's sort of a hazard of the job, and it's interesting. my roommate and I were just talking about this one experience I used to have again and again and again as a child, and then it came for me a couple other times in my older adult life. But I believe some call them incubus.
Oh, an incubus?
Yeah,
That's serious stuff, honey.
yeah, I know, and I was curious what you think about them.
Okay, so you had basically what I like to call, well, what the psychologist will tell you is sleep paralysis, which means you got spiritually attacked and you were sort of paralyzed and unable to fight back. If it was an incubus, does that mean there was like a sexual nature to it? Is that too personal to ask right here on
No,
the web
never,
TV?
never. There's nothing too personal for me, babe. You know that.
Okay, because
Uh,
that's usually what that entails. If it's an incubus or a succubus, it has there's some kind of sexual quality to it.
yeah, yeah. There was definitely an attempt, at least one time that I know of, but I was able to stop it. So, yeah. But it's interesting because then, I've seen similar forms, right? They're very like a shadowy form, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't have a face. They're nothing like that. They're just the
Right.
shadow. And so I'd always experienced them in that way where they never would come into me, but I could feel them touching me. I could see them moving around the room. I could feel them I was very afraid of them. And then later in life, I had two other experiences. One, it doesn't feel like it was very, very different, but it was a entity passing through me. And it felt more like this supercharged wind
Okay.
that blew in through the room and happened
Okay.
to pass through my body
Okay.
as I was like sort of sleeping, not sleeping, and whoop, and it just left as quick as it came.
Okay.
And that was different. And then,
I would say that was a lighter energy.
yeah, yeah.
Right. And that was probably just a spirit interested in what you were about because of your gifts.
Yeah.
Who just moved through you to see what was going on in there. I think I told you that the day my mom died, I was walking up her driveway, what's now my driveway. This will forever be my mom's house, right? Will it ever be my house, Rebecca? And I wanted to go get all her crystals that were her favorites and pack them up and take them to my valley house with me. And I was walking up the driveway, but I was exhausted because I'd been up all night. She passed at sunrise. And I stepped backwards. And as I stepped backwards, she moved forwards. Like when you're in a store and you kind of absentmindedly step backwards in a line and you bump into the person behind you. And she moved through me. And then it kind of scared the crap out of both of us. And we both went in the opposite direction. But yeah, I think that's that kind of thing. And it is very, it's an interesting energy to get used to because it does feel invasive and strange, but it's not like a violation.
Exactly. It's not a violation in those instances, was not a violation.
Right.
And even, I intentionally channel, I'm a medium. And more often than not, I'm channeling Madre Sarita, my grandmother. Sure. And on this most recent trip to Mexico, she actually took my body, not just my brain.
I was just going to ask you that. Are you ever a trance medium where you let her actually into your body?
Well, apparently.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but again, didn't feel invasive. It was just different. It was different, and different in the sense that I didn't really remember exactly what had happened or what I had said. Whereas in other channelings, there's a part of me able to hold witness.
Sure. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's true trance mediumship. If she was in and you stepped out, that's like what birds do. I mean, it fascinates me that birds will just let spirits in and they just step right out. People are like, where does the bird go? And I'm like, I don't know, anywhere it wants to, but it's not there. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way that birds just sidestep and let people in to the point where you actually can look in their eyes and see your loved one. But I think because you and she were such soulmates, it must be an easier thing for her to do, to take over your body.
yeah, there, it was a bit of a struggle, and then it was easy, and then it was sad, because
Yeah.
she was like, it's such an intimacy. It's an intimacy
Yes.
I've never experienced before. Um, so yeah, I cried after she left.
I'm
It
so
just,
sorry. But with
yeah,
this incubus,
yes.
now, but back to the incubus, Rebecca. But did it happen in different places? Was it rooted to a location, or was
No,
it attached to you? So it visited in different places.
different places. Yeah,
Yeah.
different places, different times. Uh, but usually when I wasn't in my home.
Oh, interesting. Because you were places that weren't warded as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Places
So,
that were not as spiritually grounded as your place.
yeah,
I find that I have a lot of, because I ward so much since I grew up in that house in Baltimore. I find that I have a lot of, it's not incubusy, but visitationy when I'm in hotels.
mm,
And I think it's because hotels are just very active anyhow. And then on top of it, it's not a space that I'm warding. So I'm starting now to bring things with me to ward hotel rooms when I'm there.
yeah,
Because otherwise I just don't get any sleep. And that's no fun. But,
yeah. I think
but
it's really important to just like to make a note here about what we're talking about when we say
sure.
wording something, because yes, absolutely. Bring your power objects, lay out your grid
Yes.
line, set up your bubble, like all those things. And none of that is necessary if we just truly intentionally occupy our space.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like presence is the ultimate spiritual immunity.
Yes.
It also happens to be the ultimate emotional immunity, mental immunity,
Yes.
the whole 9 yards. It's just about presence, period. So don't think that just because like you got called away on a last minute trip and you didn't have time to pack all your power objects and your salt and like all that.
You didn't have time to douche with pink Himalayan salt before you left.
Exactly. Don't worry. You're not up shit creek without a witch broom,
Right.
you know?
Right. No, you're 100% right. And I think that when you do the work that we do, right, Rebecca, you have to constantly be protecting yourself and being present to protect yourself. However, not lying, I have PTSD from growing up in that house, which is why I call myself a paranormal survivor. And so I'm not taking any chances. So I always wear my gold charms at my solar plexus chakra. I always say white light protection prayers before I go to sleep. And if I'm in a place that is foreign to me, I'll bring a little sage, a little incense, some crystals, just because I don't think I'm going to get attacked. But sometimes those places can be very busy, like spirits are walking in and out of your room all the time. And sometimes that kind of static energy makes it so I don't sleep really well. So I just do it so I can sleep very soundly. But it's not like every time I go stay in a motel, something attacks me. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever been attacked in a motel. I'm thinking, but I don't think so. But I have had things just like staring down at me in the bed or looking at me in the closet. Like they're just, curious things that wander in and out all the time. And I don't want to really have that experience when I'm on vacation because that's not a vacation to me. So I kind of go the extra mile. But with yours, is it just a form? It never looks like a guy in a hat or anything?
No, never.
Okay.
Just a form. And I haven't seen one in a long, long time. I haven't had a visitation in a long.
You've gotten so strong, probably.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. Actually, come to think of it, I think it stopped when I started working with Sarita.
Oh, so, well, there you go, right?
There you
and probably
go.
She was also keeping it away with her strength.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And she did a big cleansing and cord cutting on me with the fire ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, like I said, it all comes down to presence, and the quality of our presence is what is going to attract these and be an opening, or whether we're occupying ourselves, but also how we're occupying ourselves, right?
I agree. Yeah.
We're like radio stations, and what frequency we're tuning ourselves to is what we're open to picking up. And that's why I feel so I don't even use the word protected. I feel so assured in my travels, and in my, even here in LA, so full of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
Beautiful.
yet I'm aware that I need to constantly be checking in and tuning my dial, because
Yes.
all it
Oh,
takes is
mhm.
one drive down that road or down that highway some days where it's just like, oh, and all of a sudden I'm like, I got the cranky body blues,
Right.
I
Yeah.
start to-
And you've got to always recalibrate your equipment. I mean, that's part of it, right? Life is fluid and your spiritual life is fluid as well. Part of that fluidity is stopping and checking in on yourself and figuring out what it is that you need to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing a pretty intense detoxification right now, a physical, cleanse, and it was time.
Yeah.
It was time. Is it fun? No, but
Right.
it's
Right.
time, and it's going to help. It's just a little physical housekeeping. So we really have to tend to all levels of our being. It's an orchestra. They work together, they play together. So
Yeah, no, yes. I did it when my stomach blew up. And so because I think when your stomach blows up, that's God is trying to tell you something, as my mama used to say.
you think?
So I've sort of changed what I put in my body and um stopped being in denial about the fact that I obviously have food allergies that are not good for me, and just doing a trial and error process of figuring out what's not good for me,
Yeah,
and then cutting everything I eat sort of in half. So my stomach never really gets that full, which it doesn't really need to be.
yeah,
And just being very conscientious of what kind of fuel I put in my system. Because it's kind of dumb to sit around my entire life and pat myself on the back for never drinking or doing a drug or smoking and then kill myself with food. There's an Irish irony there that no matter what, the addiction gets you. But I just decided it was time to do that cleanse. And I don't know, I feel great on cleanses. The only problem I have when I cleanse is the first couple of weeks I have a real hard time sleeping because I'm so high all the time. When you
mm,
remove all that toxifying stuff from your system, your
yeah,
body just soars.
yeah,
And for me, I always get this feeling like, oh, all those things I haven't done for 5 years, I'm going to do them all today. And then I realize I'm sleeping 2 and 3 hours a day. But
mm,
yeah, if you're not happy with how you feel, change up add water, add oxygen, get rid of foods that are weighing you down, and really feel what it feels like to be unencumbered.
yeah, yeah. It's not a small thing to tend to your temple, which is the physical body, right?
Sure.
It's
Yes.
not, not just a fad thing, a California thing. I mean, I know we make fun of it, and yet I've been doing this since I was a kid, and me, I grew up in Boston,
Yeah.
and I've been exploring and lightening my load with food and what I put into this temple, and how I exercise this temple, like all those things, they change over the years, and they change
Yeah.
season to season, right? And here we are in a beautiful change of seasons, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
really
100%.
pay attention. What might be true for you is not true for me, right? Like how my seed needs to get furrowed into that ground, and what it needs to be surrounded by, is different for my seeds than your seeds. So
Yeah.
listen to your own soil. It knows.
Yes.
And don't underestimate the power of that, because that is your soil. That's, even the most perfect seed won't grow without fertile soil and without water and without eventual sunlight creeping through that dirt, right? So,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah, don't underestimate it. It's for me, such a powerful time. I love taking this season and really applying it to my personal spiritual process, and to the collective. That's just, I always tend to look at that lens of what is going on for the collective right now. What is it that we need to bury collectively so that we
Absolutely.
bear some fruit this spring, hopefully, right?
Well, and never forget that as you work to raise your own energetic vibration,
Yeah.
you just cannot help affecting that of those around you. And as they do the same, then it, of course, every vibration that gets raised affects the collective, because
Yeah.
we're all one family and we're all tied together with an energetic cord in some respect. And when everyone is elevating, everything becomes elevated. So that's what I'm saying. When you are frightened about something, and there's certainly things that are happening in the world right now that are very frightening, to respond to that with, oh my God, this is World War III and we're all going to die. Well, that's not raising the vibration on it. That's just basically giving it the power to destroy the world.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes we don't think about that. I just talked about this on my psychic show that is live right before this one, about how, thoughts are things and words are things. And if you're constantly projecting that everything is going to turn into the end of the world, then you're putting energy into that. And if it's not what you want, if you don't want World War III to come, then don't fixate on it, because the power of fixating on something and ruminating on something, right, and the manifestation of that is very real. So if you're scared about something going on in the world, envision the peaceful scenario.
Yeah.
That could eventually be the outcome of that. And pray for that. Meditate on that. Not on, oh my God, we're all going to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And don't feed those dialogues. Don't feed those dialogues either, right? It's, Miguel once compared it to, and you'll love this metaphor, to like a movie theater. Like, so the dream of the planet is
Sure.
one movie theater, and we're all individually sitting in that movie theater with projector heads, projecting our personal dream onto the big screen, and that's the dream of the planet.
Yeah.
So, I love this because it's like you cannot underestimate that you're impacting the big screen. You are impacting it, whether you're dreaming positively, negatively, just dreaming whatever the person next to you is dreaming, because it's easy. Whatever, you are changing what's on that big screen. And if enough of us swap out the reel and say, wait a minute, cut.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that tape, or then we start to really change the whole collective dream. Really truly begins to change. And
yes.
Even stepping out of thought forms, right? Because we can feel a little overwhelmed by thought forms, especially in this day and age, right? We've got TV news coming at us all the time, and our own mind has sort of jumped on board in this constant dialogue, right? And it can be sort of a daunting task for people to feel like I could really get control of that voice in my mind and tell a different story, dream a different dream, and put it up on the big screen. Right? That might feel overwhelming and impossible at some moments. So what I would encourage everyone to remember is that it's not the thought actually that is manifesting. It's the feeling, right? And what is the bridge between the thought and the feeling but your belief?
Yes.
So that thought can be taking all day long for the rest of your life. And as long as you don't believe it, right, then it won't manifest into your body.
Yes.
It's the feeling, right? Now we don't give it the matter, right? So, just a little, like, maybe relief for you out there who have the busy, crazy, talky mind, and you're like, oh my God.
The busy, crazy, talking mind. Yep.
Yeah. But it's okay. You can stay in that chatter. Just don't believe it. Don't give it your belief. If you catch yourself believing it, just take a breath, focus on something else, shift your attention, focus on something else. Because absolutely, regardless of what we're thinking, the world needs more love right now, period. Yes. All kinds of love, all forms of love. Everything is love in some ways, and yet we are choosing to suffer the suffering instead of love the suffering, right? That's the thing. The message is not let's just avoid it. Let's not think about it. Let's pretend it's not happening over there. And like, no, that's irresponsible, right? That isn't bringing actually more love. That's bringing more ignorance. Let's love the suffering. Let's be able to put our attention on it as if it is our child, right? And love that confusion, love that hate, love it all back into fullness again.
Beautifully said, my friend. And with that, we are out of time. You are wonderful. I know you'll come back and do this again. Where can people find you online?
Well, I am known as Shaman Sister on some of my platforms, but I recently switched over to Nagual Heart on Instagram and RebeccaHaywood.com. You can find my website, my blog. And yeah, I'd love to be here for you and offer you a mirror in this time of confusion for so many. Yeah.
I love that, sweetie. And we'll do that again. Yeah. We'll have you back again soon. And thank you for bringing your wisdom and your beauty. And we're going to talk more about the incubus. You're not off the hook on that.
I knew I wouldn't.
I think a lot of people are going through spiritual attacks and they need to know how to handle it, how to not feel shame around it, how to be not feel like they can't talk about it, and how to prevent it. So I appreciate you being so open. That's so beautiful. And the same thing happened to my mom. We lived in that house. So apparently incubi just like Scorpios. That's what I have for you today. If you missed any of those links, you can find me at sheenametalspiritual.com or everywhere on social media at Sheena Metal, or even better, send me a text message, 818-437-0886. Thank you to my dear friend, Rebecca Haywood, my wonderful engineer, Emery, my fantastic program director, Bill, and everybody here at the KGRA family for allowing us to be here every Friday at 3:00 Pacific time. Till I see you next time, seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always work to raise your vibration, and know that you are loved and you are loved, and you're so very loved by me. I'm Sheena Metal, and this is the Sheena Metal Experience, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. And you know what? We'll see you next week. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Take care of you. Happy Halloween. Happy Samhain. Happy Day of the Dead.